Hello everyone, this is Delsabar, and today I will be doing my best to explain how this command block magic works. So the first thing that really needs to be understood for how this system works is how it actually reads the books and puts them into a scoreboard. So here I'm using an example using a dummy book just in both podiums. And the dummy book consists of a blank page 1, one character on page 2, two characters on page 3, and so on up to 25 characters on page 26. So if we go into the book to read, I have it set to read the page 26, so that value is 25 there. And the first block will read that page value and set it as the score. So I'm using an execute store result in book test, and I'm running data get on the block there at page, and this is the last page, page 26 or index 25. So whenever I press that, it'll change the scoreboard on the right to 25 for that. And then next, what happens in the chain, I have them separated here, is that it will prep end the book to read from the first page of dummy. So it'll take this first blank page and stick it in the front of the book to read. And the command for that looks like data modify the book to read under book.tag.pages, and you're prep ending that from the dummy book index 0. So if I do that and come look at the book to read, you'll see that page 26 now has a value of 24. If I run this one again, the scoreboard changed to 24. Again, goes down to 23, 23. So that is the basis of how it reads it. You can have whatever values you want here, but that's why it gets read backwards. I couldn't find any other way to do it. As a more visual representation of what's happening to the books, as recommended by my wife, here is some concrete powder that represents the book data. The redstone right there shows what we're reading at this moment, and the white concrete powder represents the blank dummy book pages. So we read that, it's pink, and then we prep end it one, it pushes it all forward, and now we're reading green. Do another one, we're now reading yellow. Do another one, we're now reading blue. So that's what I'm doing with the books and prep ending blank pages. The second thing that needs to be understood is the clocks and how they work here. I did it by having a repeat command block that just adds 1 to the scoreboard for whatever value I'm using for time. In this example, it's time test, and just add 1 to it every tick. And then coming off that in a chain, it'll set block to power the read command and the chain after it. And then I'll usually have an exit function of the if the score is equal to whatever value I want it to stop at, I will replace the redstone block that is powering that with an air block. And then it will reset the time test, and that's conditional on it stopping the clock. So I have this one set to run this reader here. I just have it basically this condensed, so it's still a dummy book here, page 26 has value 25, and I have this set to stop after 25 ticks or 25 times of going through those pages, and this block just replaces the block underneath it with air so that it gets updated every time a redstone block gets placed there. So if I go ahead and run this, we should end up at page value 1. Yep, there it is. And so that is how I get the system to just run through the pages for as many as I need it to. So moving on to what the system actually does with that information. This is just one of the track modules that I've pulled out. And so we have these 4 blocks here that will read the book to play. And then chaining after that, it's just a bunch of tests where it says if the track sequence matches whatever value, it will play the note that is associated with it. And yeah, just does that for every single value that I want to account for. This one starts at 12 because when you actually sign a book, it changes the data value to include some brackets, parentheses, text, colon. It adds 11 characters to it, so the first note is value 12 here, whereas if I did it with a book and quill, it would just be value 1. And to play the note, I'm having it run a fill command for the whole screen, and it replaces those note blocks up there, and it targets the specific ones for the instrument and the note that I want it to play. So this one is set to target the harp at note 0. This one will target harp note 1, and so on until note 25, I believe. So moving on to what actually happens when you press that initialize button. Well, the first thing that happens is it turns off the ready light by doing a set block error to remove the redstone block that will power that. It also sets the repeat time equal to 0. This is at the top because I threw it in last. Then it copies the songbook that you place up here down to the book to play lectern down here. And then it measures the length of the book, how many pages are in it, and sets it as track 1 time. And then that starts the page to read clock right there, and then conditional off of that, it also resets the page to read command book. So that takes the master page to read book up here and copies it down into that lectern right there. So going on to the page to read clock, it does the standard clock of adding 1 to the scoreboard for track 1 pages every tick. It prepends the command book down here unless the page time, so this clock, is greater than or equal to the length of the book. And then an if, instead of an unless, stops the clock for that same counter. And then conditional off of that, it resets page time. Conditional off of that, it turns on the ready light by placing a redstone block up there. And it will take the command from what used to be the last page of the book in here and copy it into the command slot for this block to read it. Just tell it which page to read. And then for the manual sequence, when you take out this command book, this will detect if there's no book there, and if there isn't, it just resets this clock. So moving on from there, we get the instrument that was selected up there by detecting which page that lectern is on and setting it into the instrument sequence. It starts the instrument clock, and it resets both of the instrument books from up here. So those are the masters, and they get copied down to these two. And then for the instrument clock, same as the other clock, just adds 1 to the scoreboard for instrument time. It prepends the command book down there unless the instrument time is greater than the instrument sequence that was chosen up there. And then conditional off of that, it prepends the second command book as well. And then it will stop the clock if that is met. Very similar to that one, and resets the instrument time. And it will place a redstone block here to run this line that copies the commands into each of the blocks beneath them to change what instrument they're targeting. So right now it's on harp, but if I were to go up here and change it, and press the button, it would now be playing. So each of these is targeting a specific page within there. There's 16 instruments, so it's by intervals of 16. So on an index, that's page 15, or index 15, index 31, index 47, and so on until it reaches the second book and starts over. And you might be wondering why there's 2 books instead of just one. Well, to fit all of the commands, the command to give me these books actually wouldn't fit inside a command block if it was a single book, so I had to split it into 2. I thought command blocks were endless, but apparently there is a limit there. Alright, so that's setting the instrument, and then if there is no book set in that lectern up there, it just resets the data on the book to play over here. So now moving on to this protrusion that sits between all of the tracks. These two just clear the redstone that's set next to them, and those get set there for this one actually plays the track, and then when one gets set up here, it resets the track. And so first command is it will copy the book that you have up there down to the book to play. If it has no book up there, it resets whatever values are in that book. Same for track 2. I used to have something there, but then I figured out I didn't need it. It resets track 1 repeat beat time, and it sets the repeat time to 0, and then same for track 2. So when you turn on the repeat lever, first thing that happens is it copies the book that you have up there down to the book to play lectern. It places a redstone block here to run this chain first before it starts the clock. And it sets the repeat time equal to the play.beat time from the main clock over there. It starts the repeat clock by placing a redstone block there, clears the redstone that was placed above it, and unless play.beat time is equal to 0, it sets the repeat time equal to 1. That has to do with some funny timings for how this plays. If you turn it on in the middle of a song as opposed to before the song actually starts. So the repeat clock is a little bit different than the others. It says that if the repeat time is less than the play.beat time, it adds 1 to the repeat time. So long as that main clock is still going, this clock will be going as well. And then conditional off of that, it adds 1 to the repeat.beat time score. And then if the repeat.beat time is greater than the track time, so the length of that book, it sets the repeat.beat time equal to 1. And then conditional off of that, it resets the book to play by copying that one down into the book to play lectern. And when you turn it off, it gets rid of that redstone block to stop that clock, and it resets the repeat.beat time. So moving on to this main clock that actually plays all of the tracks at once, we start with the +1 to the scoreboard for play time every tick when there's a redstone block on top of this. And then if the play time is greater than the tempo sequence, which is measured from the book of the tempo up here, so index 0 would let play time at 1 be greater than it, and it would add 1 to the play.beat time. And then conditional off of that, it resets the play time, and it sets a block over at this chain which then sets a bunch of other blocks, a bunch of other redstone blocks in these nooks that then run the command to read the books and play them. And then coming off of that, we have a command that says unless play.beat time is less than all of the track times that it has, it will run the track reset. So if it is greater than all of them, it will run the track reset, which is placing a redstone block on this chain, which is very similar to that chain, just one block up. And that runs through that, which resets everything inside those. It copies the book back down and whatnot. And then conditional off of that, it sets the play.beat time equal to 0. It resets the play time, and unless the repeat sequence is turned on, it will set an error block here to get rid of the redstone block that would be powering this clock. So moving on to the volume control, it starts with this command block, which replaces all of the red wool with redstone. So it activates all of these chains and this chain. And this chain just replaces that with wool again. And then for the next tick, we'll start all the clocks. So these ones all activate a tick before the clocks get started. And it sets the volume sequence equal to the page that is selected on those lecterns. It copies these master command books over to the lecterns back here that control each of those instruments. And yeah, it does it for both of the books there. So onto the clock, it adds 1 to the volume time, and then unless the volume time is greater than the sequence, it'll prep end books behind the screen back there with a dummy page, both of the books, and then if the volume time is greater than the volume sequence, it will stop these clocks and put that orange wool back. It'll reset the volume time, and it will place a redstone block to run the command line back here, which that one just clears the redstone, and then these just take the proper page and insert the command into there for all of the different volumes for that specific instrument. It's very similar to the instrument selection chain. And so for the controls here, starting the clock just places a redstone block on that clock. Pausing it will remove that redstone block, and stopping it sets the play.beat time to as high as it can go, which means it's definitely higher than any songs you have placed, and will reset everything. So for actually writing the books, these commands, they will first prep end the songbook from dummy page 1, or index 1, 2, or 3, which correspond to the different values on those pages. And then it will start the note size clock, which is right over here. So +1 to the note time, and unless note time is greater than or equal to the note sequence, which is determined by which light you have selected, it'll prep end the book you're writing with a dummy page 0. And then if it is that, it stops the clock and resets the time. And so yeah, selecting these, it sets the note sequence to 1, 2, 4, or 8 as they double each other each time and need that many more pages. This command block just makes a new lectern with a blank book above this dummy one. And I believe that pretty much covers how this works. So thank you all for the amazing reception that this has gotten. I'm so glad it blew up quite a bit. I'll try to write a few more songs I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys can make with it. And yeah, thanks for watching.